Story 1. Missing. It was pouring rain, the heavy raindrops pounding steadily on the windshield, creating an annoying clattering sound. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel tightly, staring straight ahead, but my mind was lost in a jumble of chaotic thoughts. She sat next to me, her face contorted with anger.
How could you forget our date, just to hang out with your friends?
She yelled, her voice full of frustration and disappointment. Do you really need to make such a big deal out of this? I just forgot, I replied, trying to stay calm, but my tone was equally sharp.
Just forgot? You think forgetting an important date is a small matter?
She continued, her voice choked with emotion. Yes, it's just a date, no need to blow it out of proportion. I nearly shouted, unable to control my emotions. She was silent for a moment, tears streaming down her face.
Fine. If that's how you feel, let me out of the car.
What are you talking about? It's raining. Where do you want to go? I asked, but my tone remained tense.
Let me out. I don't want to sit here with you for another minute.
She insisted. Angry and frustrated, I pulled over to the side of the road. Fine, if you want to get out, then get out, I said, and opened the door for her. She stepped out of the car, quickly getting soaked in the rain. I slammed the door shut and drove off without looking back. I felt angry and hurt. How could she not understand me a little? I just forgot a date, that's all. I drove a long way, still filled with a sense of irritation. But then a feeling of remorse began to creep in. I remembered her tear-streaked face, her choked voice. After all, it was raining heavily, and leaving her alone on the highway wasn't the right thing to do. I decided to turn the car around, intending to apologize and pick her up. But when I got back to where I had dropped her off, she was nowhere to be found. The rain was still pouring down, the highway deserted, with no sign of her anywhere. Worry started to set in. This was the middle of the highway. How could she easily catch a ride or find shelter? I took out my phone and called her. The phone rang a few times, but then it went to voicemail. I tried calling a few more times, but still no answer. I tried to reassure myself, thinking that she might have hitched a ride with someone and gone home already, and still angry, didn't want to talk to me, even turning off her phone. I got back in the car and sped home without thinking much more. But deep down, there was an uneasy feeling, a vague worry that I couldn't explain. I sped towards her house in Seattle, taking the Interstate 90. The rain was relentless, each heavy drop pounding on the car roof, creating a constant, irritating sound that weighed heavily on my mind. My thoughts were consumed by her, my worry overshadowing the anger I had felt just moments ago. This highway was notorious not only for its heavy traffic, but also for a series of mysterious disappearances a few years ago. These cases were never resolved, leaving people in the area feeling uneasy whenever they passed by. Despite knowing these stories, I tried to reassure myself, believing that she was just angry and had gone home. With my heart full of anxiety, I drove straight to her house. We both lived in Seattle and met at a university party 2 years ago. From the first meeting, I was captivated by her bright smile and sparkling eyes. Her name was Emily, a strong but very sensitive girl who was easily hurt. When I arrived at her house, I parked in front of the door, my heart uneasy. I rang the doorbell, the sound echoing in the silent night, only to be drowned out by the patter of rain. A moment later, her father opened the door, looking at me with worried eyes. "Hello, son. Emily isn't home yet. Didn't she leave with you? Where is she?" he asked, his voice full of concern and anxiety. I stammered, trying to come up with a reasonable excuse. Yes, sir. We had a little argument. She said she wanted to take a walk to calm down. I thought she might be on her way home." He looked at me for a moment, his eyes filled with both suspicion and worry. "If you see her, tell her to come home immediately. It's raining heavily, and I'm worried about her." "Yes, sir, I'll find her right away," I said, trying to reassure him. Leaving Emily's house, my heart felt even heavier. I decided to go back to my own home, but my mind couldn't stop thinking about her. When I got home, I sat down on the couch, opened Instagram, and messaged Emma, Emily's best friend. "Hey, Emma, have you heard from Emily? We had an argument, and now I can't find her anywhere," I wrote, my heart full of worry. A moment later, Emma replied, "No, Emily hasn't contacted me. I'm worried too. I'll try calling her." I waited anxiously, staring at my phone. After a few minutes, Emma messaged back, "I tried calling, but she didn't answer. What's going on?" "I don't know. I replied. I let her out of the car on the highway because we were arguing. Now I have no idea where she is. This is serious. We need to do something right away, Emma responded. I realized I had made a huge mistake. The feeling of worry and regret surged within me. I didn't know what to do next, only that I had to find Emily before something terrible happened. The rain continued to pour, and my fear grew with every drop that fell. It was around midnight. The sound of the heavy rain pouring down, accompanied by thunderclaps, made me even more anxious. I sat in the car, my mind filled with hundreds of thoughts. The relentless rain, each drop hitting the windshield like tears of worry and despair. Every thunderclap startled me, the image of Emily standing in the rain earlier vividly replaying in my mind. The feeling of unease and guilt weighed heavier, making it impossible for me to stay still. I decided I had to do something immediately. I turned the key and drove through the downpour, heading towards the nearest police station. Interstate 90 seemed endless in the dark night with the rain pounding down. My mind was in turmoil with the worst thoughts, that Emily could be in danger, that I had made a terrible mistake by leaving her on the highway. When I reached the police station, I almost ran inside, rainwater still dripping from my clothes and hair. With a voice full of worry, I explained the situation to the officer on duty. "Officer, my girlfriend is missing. We had an argument and I let her out of the car on the highway. Now I can't find her anywhere." The officer looked at me with sympathetic but practical eyes. "You need to stay calm. It's possible she went home to avoid you. It's raining heavily, and we don't have the manpower to conduct a wide search right now. If you still can't contact her by morning, we'll assist with the search." Hearing this, my heart sank. I couldn't believe my ears, feeling helpless and desperate. I stepped out of the police station, the rain still pouring down, each drop drowning my hopes. I didn't know what to do, only that I couldn't wait until morning. I had to find Emily myself, had to do something immediately. Returning to my car, I drove straight back to the highway where I had left Emily. The rain was still relentless, each heavy drop hitting the windshield, creating a constant pounding sound, like the frantic beating of my heart filled with worry and fear. It was around 2 a.m. when I stopped the car at the spot where I had left Emily. The darkness was profound, and the car's headlights weren't enough to illuminate the entire scene. I stepped out of the car, standing in the rain, thunder still echoing in the background. "Emily! Emily!" I shouted her name, but my voice was just a weak echo in the heavy rain. Not seeing any sign of Emily, I decided to venture into the nearby woods to search. My feet slogged through the mud, each step heavy and difficult. The dark forest surrounded me, the rain and wind making the scene as eerie as a horror movie. But for Emily, I felt no fear. I just wanted to find her, to know that she was safe. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was Emily's father calling. His voice was filled with worry and fear. "She hasn't come home yet. Didn't she leave with you? Where is she?" "Sir, I'm looking for her right now." "I'll call you back," I replied quickly, trying not to let my worry show. Then I continued to the woods, calling her name for 2 hours, but all in vain. My calls were drowned out by the torrential rain, mingling with the wind and thunder, becoming meaningless. Finally, exhausted and desperate, I returned to the car. It was around 6 a.m. by then, the sky starting to lighten, but the rain hadn't stopped. I drove home, my mind filled with worry and fear. Emily was still missing, and I didn't know what to do next. My heart was full of fear and despair. The rain continued to fall, reflecting my chaotic and anxious state of mind. I sat in the car, my eyes weary, my heart aching with guilt and pain. I knew I'd made a big mistake, and now I had only one desire: to find Emily and know that she was safe. It was around 6 a.m. when I finally got home, exhausted and weary. The rain was still pouring, each heavy drop hitting the car windshield like tears of worry and despair. I decided to head straight to Emily's house to inform her father about the situation. When I arrived at Emily's house, I rang the doorbell, my mind racing with thoughts. A moment later, her father opened the door, his eyes full of worry and fatigue. "Hello, have you found her? Is Emily with you?" he asked, his voice filled with concern and anxiety. "Sir, I have something to tell you," I began, my voice trembling. I recounted the entire incident, from our argument letting Emily out on the highway to my futile search for her all night in the rain. Her father was furious, his eyes burning with anger. "Why didn't you tell me from the start? If we had known earlier, we could have done something right away." He fell silent for a moment, trying to contain his anger. Then he said, "Let's go. We need to go to the police station immediately." Together, we rushed to the police station, hoping to get help. When we arrived, her father and I explained the situation to the officers. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, they immediately mobilized a search team. A group of officers and search dogs were deployed, and we returned to the spot where I had left Emily. Upon arrival, the search dogs were given Emily's belongings to sniff. They began searching, but it seemed the heavy rain had washed away her scent. The dogs ran around for a while, but couldn't find any trace. Emily's father and a few other officers were checking the highway's security cameras, hoping to find some clue. Unfortunately, the stretch of road where I had left Emily was a blind spot with no surveillance. For half an hour, the nearest cameras did not record any cars passing by before I returned. This meant Emily couldn't have caught a ride home before I came back. The situation grew more desperate. The rain continued to fall, heavy drops seemingly drowning all our hopes. Everyone was silent, no one said a word, but their eyes were filled with worry and anxiety. I stood there, my mind in turmoil. I felt immense regret and guilt. If it weren't for my outburst of anger, Emily wouldn't be going through this. All I could do now was pray, hoping Emily was safe somewhere and would return soon. As time passed, my heart grew heavier. The raindrops continued to fall, their steady sound a constant reminder of my mistake. The rain poured down, but inside me, the storm was even greater. Worry and fear surged within, and I had only one wish, to find Emily and know she was safe. A month passed, and we still hadn't found Emily since that day. With each passing day, I blamed myself more for letting her out of the car over such trivial matters. Despair clung to me, but I didn't stop searching for her. Every day, I still hoped to see Emily's smile once more. I decided to share this story in hopes that if anyone sees Emily, they will let me know. Emily is about 5'5" tall with a slim build. She has long blonde hair and distinctive blue eyes. When she went missing, Emily was wearing a white hoodie and a silver necklace with a heart pendant. She disappeared on Interstate 90 on April 16, 2024. If you have any information about Emily, please contact me through the Rainy Diaries channel. Please, everyone, help me find the person I love the most. Persistent Shadow. My name is Lisa, and I often enjoy the tranquility of driving home after a long day at work, especially when it's raining. The sound of raindrops tapping rhythmically on my car's roof is like a soothing lo-fi soundtrack, making the drive peaceful and serene. Tonight was no different. The rain poured down heavily, and the streets were almost deserted. I turned on the headlights, the beams cutting through the curtain of rain as I navigated the familiar route home. As I drove through the quiet, rain-soaked streets, I felt a strange sense of calm. The rain had a way of washing away the day's stresses, and the soft glow of the streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, creating a mesmerizing effect. I hummed along to the gentle tunes playing on the radio, feeling at peace. But then, a feeling of unease started to creep in. At first, I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me, but the sensation grew stronger. I glanced in the rearview mirror and noticed a pair of headlights that seemed to be following me closely. It's just a coincidence, I told myself, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. Maybe they're just going the same way. I made a few more turns, each time expecting the car to go a different direction, but it didn't. The black car stayed right behind me, maintaining a steady distance. My heart rate began to increase as the realization set in that I was being followed. Why are they following me? What do they want? I wondered, gripping the steering wheel tighter. The rain continued to pour down, making it difficult to see clearly. The rhythmic sound of the rain, which had been soothing just moments before, now felt like a countdown to something sinister. I tried to stay calm, but the persistent presence of the car behind me was unnerving. I decided to take a few more random turns to see if they would keep following. To my horror, the car matched every move I made. Panic started to set in. I need to lose them, I thought, scanning the road ahead for a possible escape route. The streets were empty, and the rain showed no signs of letting up, making the situation even more daunting. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my nerves in check. "Stay calm, Lisa. You can handle this," I whispered to myself. But the constant pressure of the car behind me made it hard to think clearly. I knew I had to come up with a plan, and fast. Looking ahead, I saw the turn for the highway and decided to take it, hoping to lose the car in the more complex traffic patterns. As I merged onto the highway, I accelerated, hoping the car would give up the chase. But to my dismay, the black car sped up as well, still following me closely. The situation was becoming more dire by the minute. My mind raced with possibilities and fears. Who are they? Why are they following me? I couldn't find any logical explanation for what was happening. The rain continued to pound against the car, creating a claustrophobic cocoon of sound that only heightened my anxiety. In a desperate attempt to lose the car, I decided to take an exit at the last possible second, hoping to catch them off guard. I swerved onto the exit ramp, my tires skidding slightly on the wet pavement. For a moment, it seemed like I might have succeeded. But as I glanced in the mirror, I saw the black car make the same sudden turn, still in pursuit. My heart sank. The relentless car seemed like a phantom, an ominous presence that wouldn't let me go. I knew I couldn't keep driving aimlessly forever. I needed to find help, and fast. My heart pounded as I decided not to stop, but to keep driving faster, trying to shake off the mysterious black car. The rain was still coming down hard, making driving even more dangerous. I accelerated, the tires screeching on the wet road, and headed onto a deserted highway, hoping to lose the black car. But the black car remained close, its headlights like two piercing eyes cutting through the rain, never leaving my rearview mirror. The rain continued to pour, splashing up from the tires, making visibility even worse. I felt like I was in a horror movie being chased by an unseen pursuer. Why isn't he giving up? I wondered, the fear turning into desperation. I glanced quickly in the rearview mirror, the black car's headlights still glaring back at me. I have to find a way to lose him. I can't let him follow me forever. Suddenly, I saw a police car parked on the side of the road ahead. This is my chance, I thought, turning on my hazard lights and honking frantically to attract attention. The police car turned on its lights and began to move, quickly pursuing the black car behind me. The police car moved closer to the black car, forcing it to stop. My heart was still racing, but I felt a sense of relief as I saw the police intervene. I slowed down, waiting in my car, my eyes never leaving the rearview mirror. But then, the black car suddenly accelerated, speeding away at an incredible speed. The police car continued the chase, but the black car swerved through the smaller roads and disappeared into the darkness, leaving me with a strange and unsettling feeling. I pulled over to the side of the road, trying to calm down. The police returned to me, asking about what had happened. They took my statement and promised to patrol the area more thoroughly to ensure everyone's safety. I felt like I had just escaped a nightmare, but the fear and the feeling of being watched still lingered. After dealing with the police, I continued driving home, still shaken. The rain was still pouring down, but the fear gradually turned into a sense of determination. I knew that tonight, the images of the mysterious black car and the feeling of being followed would haunt me for a long time. But I also knew that I had overcome a terrifying ordeal and wouldn't let it break me. When I finally reached home, I felt a gentle wave of safety wash over me. I stepped inside, closed the door, and sat down, trying to let the sound of the rain outside soothe my lingering anxieties. Even though I knew the black car might still be out there, I felt stronger, ready to face any challenge that might come my way. The second story concludes. Rainy Diaries invites you to listen to the third story. One rainy evening, I was driving home after a long day at work. As a delivery driver for a courier company, I had finished my late shift and was eager to get home and rest. The night was pitch black, the rain was pouring heavily, and the howling wind made driving more challenging than ever. The road home was long and desolate, lined with dense trees on both sides. The weak light from my car's headlights shone on the slippery road, creating a gloomy and chilly scene. I focused intently on driving, trying hard not to let my eyes close from fatigue. Suddenly, my headlights illuminated an unexpected sight ahead, causing me to slow down immediately. A large truck was blocking the road, its lights off and darkness enveloping the area. I stopped a short distance from the truck, wondering what had happened. The road was too narrow, and I couldn't drive around the truck. I turned on my hazard lights and stepped out of the car, feeling the cold rain hit my face like needles. I called out, hoping to find someone to ask, but there was no response. As I turned back to my car, I heard footsteps and voices behind me. Turning around, I saw a group of people approaching. They looked disheveled, with ragged clothes and wild eyes. This group appeared to be homeless and clearly not in a sober state. Fear and anxiety surged within me as I realized the dangerous situation I was in. I quickly got back into my car and locked the doors, trying to stay calm and figure out how to escape. The group had reached my car, banging on the doors and windows, shouting at me to get out. One of them tried to pull the door handle but couldn't succeed because I had locked it. In my moment of panic, I remembered my phone and immediately called the police, reporting the urgent situation. "Police, please hurry. I'm being blocked by a group of homeless people trying to break into my car," I shouted into the phone. "I'm on a desolate road near the western forest. Hurry, they're trying to break into my car." While waiting for help, I knew I couldn't just sit in the car. They were becoming more aggressive, hitting harder on the doors and windows, which started to crack. I had to do something to get out of this situation. Looking around, I realized I had no choice but to drive straight into the truck blocking the road to escape. I pressed hard on the accelerator, the engine roared, and the car sped forward. The homeless people jumped back in surprise, but I didn't stop. The truck got closer and closer, and I felt the strong impact as my car hit it. Despite the pain and dizziness, I didn't give up and continued driving to escape. Once out of the dangerous situation, I slowed down and looked in the rearview mirror, seeing the group of people standing helplessly. I drove to a nearby gas station and waited for the police to arrive. They quickly came, and I recounted the entire event. The rain continued to pour, but in my heart, another storm had passed. The police took my information and began their investigation. They asked for details about what happened and descriptions of the homeless group. I still remembered clearly their wild faces and threatening eyes. The police promised to patrol the area more thoroughly to ensure the safety of drivers passing by at night. An officer named John, who seemed very experienced, spoke to me privately. "You did the right thing by calling the police immediately," John said. "We'll check the truck and find out where it came from and why it was blocking the road." While waiting for the investigation results, I felt anxious and exhausted. The images of that terrifying night still haunted me. I drove home in a state of mental strain, but felt more at ease knowing the police were working to protect the community. The next day, the police called to inform me that they had found the truck abandoned with no trace of the homeless group. They suspected that the truck might have been stolen and used for malicious purposes. Officer John also mentioned that they had increased patrols in the area and advised the public to be cautious when passing through at night. Although they couldn't identify the homeless group, I felt relieved knowing I had escaped safely and the police were making efforts to prevent similar incidents. That incident became a significant lesson for me about the importance of vigilance and timely response in dangerous situations. Since then, I have always tried to avoid late shifts and deserted roads at night. I also equipped my car with additional safety devices like a dash cam and self-defense tools. That night changed my perspective on safety and reminded me that in any situation, staying calm and clear-headed can save your life. The haunted gas station. My name is Alan, and I'm a truck driver. Long hauls through desolate areas are a part of my daily routine. One late night, as I was driving through the isolated roads of Arizona, I felt the need to take a break and stretch my legs. The rain was pouring down heavily, the sound of it hitting the roof of my truck, creating a somber and dreamlike atmosphere. The headlights of my truck cut through the rain, illuminating a gas station ahead. A flickering neon sign read, "Open 24 hours" in the dark night. A perfect spot to rest, I thought, feeling grateful for a place to take a break. I pulled into the station, my initial sense of relief quickly giving way to unease. The gas station looked old and nearly abandoned. The windows were grimy, and weeds grew from cracks in the concrete. I stepped out of my truck, feeling the rain lash against my face, cold and unforgiving. The rhythmic patter of rain on the truck's roof, which had been soothing before, now seemed eerie and unsettling. I decided to go inside to find the restroom and maybe grab a snack. The old wooden door creaked as I pushed it open, a chill running down my spine as a cold draft swept past me. Inside, the space was dark and dusty, as if it hadn't been used in years. The shelves were empty, and the dim light from a few old bulbs added to the spooky atmosphere. I found the restroom in a far corner of the gas station. The door creaked loudly as I opened it. Inside, everything was damp and covered in mold. As I washed my hands, I tried to ignore the filthy surroundings. Suddenly, I heard footsteps echoing outside. The sound was clear and deliberate, resonating in the empty space of the gas station. My heart started pounding faster. Is there someone else here? I wondered, anxiety and fear creeping in. The footsteps stopped right outside the restroom door, and then I heard the door open and close. Is someone there? I called out, but there was no response. I decided to check around to ensure I wasn't being pranked or threatened. I stepped out, scanning the dark area. There was no one. The gas station was completely deserted. A chill ran down my spine as if someone was watching me from the shadows. The feeling of fear became more intense. I quickly returned to my truck, slammed the door shut, and locked it. I sat there trying to calm myself. It's just my imagination, I told myself, but the unease lingered. I started the engine and drove away from the gas station, trying to forget the unsettling experience. A few days later, I stopped at a diner for truckers where I overheard a chilling story from other drivers. They said that the gas station I had stopped at was the site of a horrific robbery many years ago. Several people had been killed during the robbery, and since then, the gas station had been abandoned. People said the spirits of the victims still haunted the place, unable to find peace. Hearing this, I couldn't help but shiver. The footsteps and the feeling of being watched that I had experienced were likely not just my imagination. That gas station was truly haunted, and I had been fortunate to leave without encountering anything worse. Since then, I've been more cautious about stopping in remote and unfamiliar places, especially on dark, rainy nights. The experience left a lasting impression on me, making me always think twice before deciding to take a break at any place along those endless roads. Story: Accident in the Rainy Night. In 2006, I was Tom, living in a small town in Pennsylvania. One stormy night, after working late at the factory, I was driving home on Interstate 36. The rain was pouring down, creating a thick veil that reduced visibility to just a few meters. The sound of raindrops pounding on the roof and windshield created a monotonous yet eerie soundtrack. The car's headlights only illuminated a short distance ahead, and I had to strain my eyes to see the road. The highway was deserted and dark, with only the sound of rain and the wind howling through the windshield. I tried to keep a firm grip on the steering wheel, but a sense of unease began to creep into my mind. The heavy rain made the wipers work at full capacity, but still couldn't clear the windshield. I silently prayed for a safe journey home, but the stories from my childhood about this stretch of road kept resurfacing. Suddenly, out of the darkness, I saw a figure standing by the roadside, waving for help. My heart raced, and I slammed on the brakes. In an instant, the figure vanished. I wondered if my eyes were playing tricks on me. Perhaps it was fatigue and stress, but the feeling of dread was impossible to shake off. I continued driving, trying not to let fear take over my rational mind. But I couldn't stop thinking about that mysterious figure. The stories about this road, about ghosts and mysterious accidents, made me even more anxious. I tried to focus on the road ahead, but the eerie images and sounds kept swirling in my head. Suddenly, in the torrential rain, I saw a car ahead lose control and skid sideways across the road. I tried to brake, but the slippery road made my car lose control. My car spun on the wet pavement, everything around me spinning in a blur. I felt a surge of panic as my car crashed into the roadside and came to a sudden stop. My heart pounded and my whole body trembled. I checked to see if I was injured and felt lucky to be okay. But the other car wasn't so fortunate. Through the windshield, I saw that the car was badly damaged, and the driver inside was motionless. Despite my fear, I knew I had to help. I turned on my emergency lights, stepped out into the rain, and ran to the other car. As I got closer, I saw the driver, a middle-aged man, badly injured and unconscious. I tried to open the car door, but it was stuck. I took out my phone and called for emergency services, hoping help would arrive in time. While waiting, I felt a chilling breeze pass through. Amid the storm, I heard a strange sound, like a distant sigh. I turned to look and saw the figure I had seen earlier, standing by the roadside, staring at me with hollow eyes. The figure didn't move, just stood there, and I felt a wave of sheer terror wash over me. As the ambulance lights flickered from afar, the figure vanished as if it had never been there. The paramedics arrived and quickly took the injured man away. I recounted the incident to the police, but didn't mention the strange figure, fearing they would think I was hallucinating. After that night, I couldn't forget the hollow eyes of that figure. Every time I drove on that highway in the rain, I felt a chill and wondered if the figure was the ghost of a previous accident victim or just a figment of my imagination on that stormy night. Either way, I never wanted to experience that horrifying feeling again. The fifth story concludes. Rainy Diaries invites you to listen to the sixth story. A rainy night of horror. My name is Jack, and I've been a pizza delivery driver for over 3 years. That night, the rain was pouring down, each drop falling like a mournful rhythm on the rooftops and roads. The cold sensation of the rain seeped through my skin, making me want to finish my work quickly and get home to the warm bed and hot coffee waiting for me. I received my last order of the day as the sky grew dark. The address was in the suburbs, about 20 miles from downtown. I set the address into my GPS and began the journey, my car navigating narrow roads with rain splashing everywhere. The heavy rain constantly blurred the windshield, limiting my visibility. I had to turn on my headlights and adjust my speed to ensure safety. After nearly 30 minutes of driving, I arrived at a fairly deserted area. On both sides of the road were sparse forests and a few scattered houses, their dim yellow lights casting a ghostly glow. I muttered to myself, hope this will be a quick delivery. When I reached the requested address, I saw the house nestled down a small alley, surrounded by dense trees with their shadows stretching long on the wet ground. I parked in front of the gate, grabbed the pizza box from the back seat, and began walking down the path leading to the house. The sound of rain on the roof and leaves created a monotonous, melancholic melody, amplifying the cold and lonely atmosphere. As I approached the door, a middle-aged man with a weathered face opened it. He wore a thick sweater and old jeans, looking at me with tired eyes. "Bring the pizza inside, please," he said in a low, raspy voice. I hesitated slightly, but didn't want to stand in the rain any longer, so I agreed. "Sure," I replied, stepping inside. The house felt cozy, with a crackling fire in the fireplace. I set the pizza box on the table and turned back to the man. "Thanks," he said, handing me a bill. I smiled weakly, nodded, thanked him, and turned to leave. When I was about 200 feet from my car to the house, I suddenly heard a loud noise coming from my car. It was the sound of breaking glass. My heart raced, fear surging through me. I immediately turned around and saw a group of people trying to break into my car. "Damn it!" I muttered, panic paralyzing my thoughts for a few seconds. I tried to take deep breaths to stay calm, but the fear almost made it impossible to think straight. Without further thought, I ran quickly towards the car, shouting, "Hey, stop!" My shouts echoed through the air but were drowned out by the rain. The group didn't stop. They intensified their efforts to break into my car. I felt helpless, unsure of how to protect my belongings amid this terrifying rainy night. My legs faltered, and my mind spun with chaotic thoughts. Should I confront them? Or run and call the police? But if I ran, would I be able to stop them before they took everything? Fear and anger surged within me. I decided I couldn't let them steal my hard-earned belongings. I grabbed a large rock from the roadside and hurled it towards the group. "Get away from my car!" I shouted, hoping the noise and my determination would scare them off. One of them turned around, his eyes glinting under the streetlights, his face obscured by the rain. "What do you want, huh?" he snarled, advancing towards me. My heart pounded, but I tried to stand my ground. "Stay away from my car right now," I repeated, trying to make my voice firmer. But he just sneered and continued towards me. I backed away, my foot splashing into a puddle, the cold seeping through my spine. Damn it, what should I do? I thought, feeling a sense of despair. I knew I couldn't face them directly without anything in my hands. So I quickly pulled out my phone and called 911, my voice trembling but determined. "I'm being attacked. They're trying to break into my car, near address 78 Elm Road." I tried to prolong the call, speaking loudly enough for them to hear me reporting to the police. "The police will be here any minute," I said, trying to sound more confident, my eyes never leaving the leader advancing towards me. The others began to hesitate, glancing at each other and then at the leader. "Damn it, let's go," one of them said, and they all quickly vanished into the darkness. I sighed in relief, my heart still racing, but the fear subsiding. I approached my car, checking if anything was missing. Luckily, they hadn't managed to take anything important. I turned back to the house to thank the man for letting me in to avoid the rain, but when I arrived, the house was completely empty, with no lights and no sound. A chilling and strange feeling washed over me. I hurried away, climbed into my car, and drove home, my mind filled with confusion and worry. That night, I couldn't sleep, the images and sounds of the incident haunting my thoughts. It was a night I would never forget. A horrifying rainy night that taught me about hidden dangers and the need for vigilance in every situation. And from that night on, I always reminded myself to be more careful especially on dark and lonely rainy nights like that. A terrifying encounter in Malaysia. My name is Afiq, an adventurous young man from Malaysia. I've always been drawn to nature and the thrill of exploring uncharted places. One weekend, I decided to embark on a solo journey through Belum Temengor, one of the oldest tropical rainforests in the world. The idea of riding my motorbike through this lush green paradise filled me with excitement and a sense of peace. That morning, the air was fresh as I donned my helmet, checked my bike, and began my journey. The road was beautiful, surrounded by towering ancient trees and vibrant vegetation. The sound of birds singing and leaves rustling under my wheels was like a soothing symphony. I felt more alive than ever, energized by the fresh air and the sense of freedom that came from being enveloped by nature. As I ventured deeper into the forest, I noticed the canopy overhead becoming denser, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. The road here was less traveled, with thick undergrowth lining the path. The sound of my engine blended with the sounds of nature, creating a magical harmony. The initial sense of comfort gradually gave way to an odd feeling, as if someone or something was watching me. My heart started to race, sensing that something was amiss. I tried to calm myself, thinking it was just my imagination. But when I glanced in my rearview mirror, my heart nearly stopped. From behind, a massive tiger was charging towards me, its eyes gleaming with a deadly intent. I couldn't believe my eyes. Everything seemed to slow down. Its roar echoed through the still air, menacing and terrifying. "Run, Aslan! Run fast!" I urged myself, struggling to stay calm. I accelerated, my tires screeching on the dirt road, leaves and branches whipping past on either side. My heart pounded fiercely, each second feeling like an eternity. The tiger was still close behind, its roars growing louder. I tried to remain composed, searching for a way to escape the ferocious beast. Seeing the tiger in my mirror, a wave of fear washed over me. My eyes widened, and my heart pounded erratically. I saw the tiger's fiery eyes, those eyes piercing into my mind, freezing me in place. I knew that a single mistake, a moment's delay, could cost me my life under its sharp claws. My mind was a whirlwind of fear and determination to survive. "I can't die here," I told myself, the instinct to survive surging stronger than ever. I poured all my energy into riding, every movement becoming precise and swift. As a bend approached, I leaned, steering hard, feeling the tires grip the road. The tiger's roars still echoed behind me, but I didn't dare look back. As I rounded the bend, a stretch of road opened up before me, with the shimmering lights of a rest stop in the distance. "Just a little further," I told myself, trying to stay focused. When I finally reached the safety of the rest stop, I stopped my bike, gasping for breath, trying to calm my racing heart. The tiger had vanished into the forest, but the fear lingered. My heart pounded, cold sweat running down my spine. I took deep breaths, trying to regain my composure after the harrowing experience. Sitting down, I felt the cold sweat trickling down my forehead, my breath heavy and labored. The sounds of the forest, once peaceful and soothing, now felt like haunting echoes in my mind. My helmet had a mounted action camera, and it had recorded everything. The footage later went viral worldwide, shocking and frightening many. It was truly a terrifying experience, but amazing that I can sit here and recount it. This encounter will forever be etched in my memory, reminding me of the harsh and wondrous nature of the wild. Nature can be beautiful and serene, but it can also be full of unexpected dangers, requiring us to remain vigilant and respectful. The haunting of Donner Pass. My name is David, an American university student. After a stressful year studying at the University of California, Berkeley, I always look forward to summer vacation to return home. My home is in a quiet rural area about 200 kilometers away from the university. To get home, I have to go through Donner Pass, a beautiful yet treacherous mountain pass with winding curves and narrow roads, located near the city of Truckee, California. That day, on a hot June afternoon, I decided to depart in the late afternoon to avoid the scorching heat of the day. As the weather began to cool, I got into my car and started my journey. The road leading out of the city was peaceful, with green rice fields stretching on both sides and the sound of birds singing in the tranquil air. A gentle breeze blew through the car window, carrying the sweet fragrance of wildflowers and summer grasses, making me feel comfortable and relaxed. I drove leisurely, enjoying the fresh countryside air. But when I reached the foot of Donner Pass, my car suddenly stalled. I stepped on the brake and felt the car slowly come to a stop by the roadside. The sun had begun to set, painting the sky with a vibrant red-orange hue, creating a scene that was both beautiful and eerie. I stepped out of the car, feeling the damp ground beneath my feet, the smell of earth after the rain rising to my nose. I opened the hood and checked, but found no obvious problem. A sense of unease began to creep into my mind, a strange feeling as if something was waiting ahead. When the clock struck midnight, it started to drizzle, and I finally managed to fix the car and began climbing Donner Pass. This pass is notorious for its dangerous curves and narrow roads, but I had driven through it many times before, so I wasn't too worried. However, tonight felt different. In the middle of the pass, as the rain intensified, I suddenly saw a white figure gliding by the roadside. I was startled, my heart racing. Initially, I thought it was just a hallucination caused by fatigue and sleepiness, so I tried to ignore it. But the feeling of unease began to settle deeper into my mind. As I continued driving, I began to hear strange sounds coming from inside the car. It wasn't the engine or the sound of rain, but echoing whispers like distant murmurs. I tried to focus on the road ahead, but the whispers grew clearer as if someone was sitting right next to me. "Is someone here?" I muttered, trying to keep my voice steady. There was no answer, but the whispers continued, growing louder. I felt a chill run down my spine, and my instincts told me something was very wrong. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw a shadowy figure sitting in the back seat. I turned around, but no one was there. Yet, when I looked back at the mirror, the shadow was still there, like an immortal ghost. At this point, sheer terror enveloped me. I tried to speed up, hoping to escape the pass as quickly as possible, but the shadow remained in the rearview mirror, no matter what I did. It felt like a nightmare with no escape, everything around me growing hazier and more terrifying. In my panic, I turned on the radio, hoping to dispel my fear, but only heard static and then a chilling, eerie laughter. The laughter seemed to come from another world, cold and distant, leaving me unsure of what to do other than pray I would get home safely. The rain kept pouring down, and the road ahead grew more blurred in the car's headlights. I tried to ignore the strange sounds and images, but the sense of anxiety and fear wouldn't leave me. Every time I glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw the shadow sitting silently, as if watching my every move. I thought about stopping the car, but quickly dismissed the idea. Who knows what might happen if I stopped in the middle of the pass at midnight, when darkness and silence only heightened the horror? All I could do was drive, trying to get out of the pass as quickly as possible. Finally, after moments of sheer terror, I made it out of the pass and arrived home. When I parked the car in front of the gate, I breathed a sigh of relief, but the sense of fear hadn't completely left me. I wondered if it was all just a hallucination from exhaustion, or if something supernatural had really happened that night. Since that night, whenever I drive through the pass alone at night, I always feel like someone is watching me. Those whispers, although no longer as clear, still echo in my mind, reminding me of that horrifying night. And the shadow in the rearview mirror, I will never forget that image. It has become a part of the fear I must live with every time I return to that mountain pass. My name is Mark. I am an American traveler who has visited Vietnam multiple times. I love the culture, cuisine, and especially the way people move around here. Instead of cars like in the US, motorcycles are the main mode of transportation. I find it fascinating and liberating to ride a motorcycle through narrow streets, witnessing the simple yet vibrant life of the Vietnamese people. This time I chose Nha Trang, a beautiful coastal city, as my destination. Upon arrival, I rented a motorcycle to freely explore every nook and cranny of the city. The cool sea breeze helped ease the harsh summer heat. After a day wandering under the blazing sun, I returned to my hotel, exhausted, but excited. That night, I opened Google to learn more about interesting nearby destinations. I stumbled upon Desolate, a city about 100 kilometers from Nha Trang, famous for its cool climate and stunning scenery. The road connecting the two cities is called the Road of Sea and Flowers. It sounded romantic and promising. My curiosity drove me to decide on a trip to Dalat immediately. I had heard of Dalat with its vast pine forests, vibrant flower gardens, and cool air, a stark contrast to the heat of Nha Trang. The trip promised to be an exciting and novel experience. Early the next morning, I woke up, packed light, and hit the road. The sturdy motorcycle took me out of Nha Trang, heading towards the lush green hills of Dalat. The Road of Sea and Flowers was not only picturesque, but also challenging with winding curves and steep slopes. But that did not deter me. Instead, it made me even more excited. Along the way, I encountered small villages where the locals lived simply and friendly. I stopped at a roadside cafe, enjoyed a strong black coffee, and chatted with the owner. She told me folklore and mysterious legends about this road. These stories only fueled my curiosity and eagerness to explore. However, not all the stories were pleasant. The cafe owner mentioned a dense forest along the road, believed by locals to be eerie and spooky. I felt a chill down my spine hearing about strange disappearances and unexplained phenomena in that forest. But being an adventurous and curious person, these stories only made me want to move forward. As the sun began to set, casting a red glow across the sky, I continued my journey. However, a strange feeling started to creep into my mind as I approached the mysterious forest the cafe owner had mentioned. My motorcycle suddenly slowed down as if an invisible force was pulling it back. I tried to accelerate, but it was useless. Anxiety began to creep into my heart. Were the stories the cafe owner told not just rumors? Did I have enough courage to continue my journey? Or would I turn back to Nha Trang in the dark? These questions kept swirling in my mind, making me unable to stop but face whatever awaited ahead. As darkness from the dense forest loomed closer, I felt as if thousands of eyes were watching my every move. My heart pounded faster, and cold sweat ran down my spine. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from ahead, startling me. In the thick mist, I saw a giant shadow appear before me, like a ghost from the cafe owner's stories. My motorcycle stalled, and I felt frozen in place, unable to move. In the dense fog, I couldn't distinguish between reality and illusion. Everything became extremely blurry and bizarre. A heavy sigh echoed from the shadow, making me feel like I was being pulled into a nightmarish vortex. Was this the end of my daring adventure? I couldn't stay here forever. I had to make a decision immediately. With one final effort, I gathered all my courage and tried to restart the motorcycle. Would I be able to escape this terrifying situation and continue my journey to Desolate, or would I be forever trapped in the mysterious fog of Conlay Pass? These thoughts kept racing through my mind as I prepared to face whatever horror awaited. Despite the fear engulfing my mind, I knew I couldn't stand still forever. I took a deep breath, tried to calm myself, and restarted the motorcycle. The engine roared to life, but still it wouldn't move. I felt trapped in a cycle of horror and despair. At that moment, through the thick fog, I heard an unfamiliar sound. Footsteps. They were not the footsteps of an ordinary person, but heavy, dragging sounds, as if something very large was approaching. I turned my head, trying to see through the fog, but could only make out a faint shadow moving slowly towards me. I recalled the stories the cafe owner told about the missing people and the ghosts in the forest. My heart pounded wildly and cold sweat poured down. In that moment, I felt like I was trapped in a real horror story, with no escape. As I gathered the last of my courage and pushed forward despite the overwhelming fear, suddenly the footsteps stopped. The space became eerily silent. I could feel my heart beating in that stillness. Only the sound of the wind blowing through the trees created strange rustling noises. With one final push, I tried to restart the motorcycle again. This time, the engine responded, and the bike began to move. A wave of relief washed over me as the motorcycle started rolling, albeit shakily and nervously. After driving about 3 kilometers from Conla Pass, I felt more at ease when I encountered a local man walking along the roadside. With a panicked voice, I stopped and recounted my experience. The thick fog and eerie sounds that chilled me to the bone. The man listened calmly to my story. When I finished, he smiled lightly and explained that the temperature difference between Nha Trang and Desolate was significant. As I ascended the pass, the sudden change in climate created thick fog and strange natural phenomena. The footsteps I heard could have been from wildlife or echoes from the forest. He also noted that riding a motorcycle without the protection of a car could amplify the sense of fear and vulnerability, especially in an unfamiliar environment with such intense stories attached to it. His explanation made me feel relieved and less anxious. Although this experience was quite frightening, it was also an essential part of any adventure. I thanked the man and continued my journey to Desolate, carrying with me the memories and lessons from this trip. As the motorcycle rolled along the winding road, I realized that the recent experiences were not just challenges, but valuable lessons. I learned to face my fears and overcome unexpected obstacles on my journey. When I finally arrived in Desolate, I enjoyed the fresh, cool air and the beautiful scenery of the city. Desolate welcomed me with vibrant flower fields and colorful streets. I felt like I had overcome a significant challenge to get here. The trip was not just a journey from point A to point B, but also a journey of self-discovery and facing inner fears. I stopped at a charming cafe on the hillside, sipping hot coffee and admiring the stunning views of Desolate. The memories of the challenging journey through Kanla Pass remained vivid, but now they were cherished memories of a colorful adventure. The journey from Nha Trang to Dalat not only brought unforgettable experiences, but also helped me understand myself better. I learned to face my fears and overcome difficult challenges. These are invaluable lessons that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. In the end, as the sunset cast its golden hues, I felt that I had truly conquered the road of sea and flowers and reached my destination within my heart. The memories and experiences from this journey will always be an unforgettable part of my life. The 9th story concludes. Rainy Diaries invites you to listen to the 10th story. The Rainy Night Drive. My name is Mark, and I have always had a passionate love for long drives. There is something almost therapeutic in the soothing hum of the engine, the rhythmic swish of the windshield wipers, and the solitude of the open road. But one rainy night in October, I experienced something that shattered that tranquility forever. That night, I had just finished a business meeting in a small town about 3 hours from home. The weather had been gloomy all day, and by the time I hit the road, a heavy downpour had started. The rain was relentless, pounding on the roof of the car like thousands of tiny drums. Visibility was poor, but I had driven in worse conditions before. I figured a cup of coffee from a roadside diner would keep me alert. As I drove, I noticed how deserted the road was. It seemed everyone had the sense to stay indoors on such a miserable night. The highway was almost eerie, illuminated only by my headlights cutting through the rainy night. I tuned the radio to an oldies station, hoping the music would keep me company. About an hour into the drive, I saw a figure on the side of the road, drenched and seemingly waving for help. Normally, I wouldn't stop for hitchhikers, especially at night. But something about this person compelled me to pull over. As I got closer, I saw it was a woman in a soaked white dress. Her hair was plastered to her face, and she looked terrified. "Need a lift?" I asked as I rolled down the window. "Please," she said, her voice barely audible over the rain. She climbed into the passenger seat, her cold, wet clothes dripping onto the leather seats. I cranked up the heat, trying to make her comfortable. She was shivering, and I noticed she had a strange, faraway look in her eyes. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to start a conversation to ease the tension. Just down the road," she replied, her voice trembling. We drove in silence for a few miles. She didn't offer much information, and I didn't press. The only sound was the rain pounding on the car and the occasional crackle of thunder. Through the dim light, I noticed her clutching her hands tightly, her nails digging into her palms as if trying to contain an inner fear. Eventually, she pointed to a small, dark road branching off the highway. "Turn here," she said, her tone urgent. I hesitated. The road was barely more than a dirt path, and it looked like it hadn't been used in years, but something in her eyes made me comply. As we bumped along the rough path, I could barely see anything beyond the glow of my headlights. "Is this where you live?" I asked, trying to mask my unease. She nodded. "Yes, just a bit further." We drove for what felt like an eternity, though it was probably only a few minutes. Finally, we reached an old, dilapidated house. It looked abandoned, with boarded-up windows and overgrown weeds choking the yard. She thanked me softly and stepped out into the rain. I watched her walk up to the house, and something about the way she moved struck me as odd. She didn't seem to walk so much as glide. A sense of dread washed over me, and I decided to leave as quickly as possible. As I turned the car around, my headlights swept across the front of the house, illuminating something that made my blood run cold. There, nailed to the front door, was a weathered missing person poster. The picture was of the woman I had just given a ride to. According to the date, she had disappeared over 20 years ago. Panic surged through me, and I floored the gas, speeding back down the dirt road and onto the highway. My hands were shaking, and my heart pounded in my chest. I drove straight home without stopping, the rain now seeming like a sinister presence, rather than a mere inconvenience. For days, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I checked the news, old records, and even visited the local library to find out more about that woman. Every piece of information confirmed what I had seen. She had vanished on a rainy night, never to be seen again. Every night, I couldn't sleep, the image of her clear in my mind. The fear became an obsession. I couldn't drive at night anymore, especially when it rained. The memory of that night, the haunted look in her eyes, and the chilling realization of her fate have stayed with me. Now, whenever I hear the rain tapping on my window, I can't help but wonder if she's still out there, waiting for another unsuspecting driver to give her a ride. I've tried to forget that story, but how can I when the memory repeats itself in my mind every rainy night? Sometimes I wonder if anyone else has met her and felt the same way I did. Who was she? Why did she appear that rainy night? These questions have no answers, and I can only torment myself with the lingering obsession. I don't know what really happened that night. Maybe it was a horrific dream, or perhaps I encountered a lost soul. But either way, I've changed. Rainy nights are no longer a joy, but a nightmare, always reminding me of the woman in the white dress and her sad, distant look. A mysterious black truck on the lonely road. My name is Jack, and I've been a truck driver for over 10 years, hauling goods across America. That night, I was driving from Houston to El Paso, traveling along a deserted stretch of road in Texas. The sky was stormy, with lightning flashing intermittently illuminating the long and lonely road. The roads were drenched and slippery, making me drive more cautiously. The sound of rain pelting the roof and the wind howling through the windows combined with the steady hum of the engine, creating a monotonous yet eerie soundtrack. I strained my eyes through the windshield, the headlights barely penetrating the thick rain. There were no other cars on this stretch of road, and the feeling of isolation began to creep into my mind. Suddenly, in the distance, I saw the headlights of a vehicle behind me. Probably another driver trying to make it through this stormy night, I thought, feeling somewhat reassured by the presence of another person on this desolate road. But as the vehicle approached closer, I realized it was a black truck with no license plate. No license plate? That's strange. Maybe it fell off or got damaged in the bad weather, I thought, trying to reassure myself. However, the black truck stuck to my tail, following closely no matter how much I accelerated or slowed down. A sense of unease started to grow within me. What's going on? Why is this guy tailing me? I wondered, feeling the anxiety start to spread. I tried to stay calm and focused on driving. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Don't panic, Jack. You've been through a lot. Just stay calm. But no matter how much I tried to convince myself, the fear kept growing. I drove for another hour, but the black truck didn't leave my rearview mirror. The anxiety turned into real fear. My heart beat faster, and every glance in the mirror revealed the truck's headlights, like two eyes watching me, never letting me out of sight. Why is he following me? Does he want to harm me? I asked myself, trying to find an answer. What should I do? Call the police? But I'm in the middle of nowhere. Will they get here in time? The thought of being chased by a stranger in the dark made me shiver, but I knew I couldn't just keep driving indefinitely. Deciding that I couldn't let this continue, I resolved to stop and confront the driver of the black truck. I have to face him. I can't just keep driving, I told myself, trying to stay calm. I chose a safe spot to pull over, turned on my hazard lights, and waited. However, when I stopped, the black truck also stopped a short distance behind me. What does he want? Why did he stop when I stopped? I felt my heart pounding, unable to control my anxiety. I took a deep breath, summoning all my courage to step outside. All right, Jack, you've made your decision. There's no turning back now, I told myself, trying to maintain my composure. But as soon as I opened the door and stepped out, the black truck's headlights intensified, blinding me. What the hell is going on? I wondered, barely able to comprehend what was happening before the black truck sped away at an incredible speed. In an instant, it vanished into the night, leaving me standing in the storm with no trace of it left behind. I tried to look after it, but saw nothing but the dark, rain-soaked road. What the hell just happened? Did I just see a ghost? I asked myself, trying to make sense of what I had just witnessed. I got back into the truck, my heart still pounding, trying to calm down. I can't explain it. It disappeared as if it never existed. I continued my journey with a sense of confusion and fear. That night, I couldn't forget the headlights of the mysterious black truck and the chilling feeling of being chased. Could there be other black trucks waiting in the dark? I wondered, unable to stop thinking about that strange experience. Every time I drove along lonely roads after that, I was always more vigilant, sometimes glancing at the rearview mirror, wondering if another dark shadow was silently following me. That night's experience haunted me, making me unable to forget the terrifying feeling of being chased by a black truck with no license plate in a stormy night. Rainy Diaries channel thanks you for watching the entire video of driving alone in the rain. See you in the next video tomorrow.